Welcome everyone. Today we have a Borderlands 3 class spotlight. We'll be looking at the class for Beastmaster, which is Flank. Flank is a range hunter basically, also a sniper. Let's have a look at Flank's trailer. You can see over here, Flank has pets, and a big variety here is that he can summon different pets by going different specs. We'll be looking at the skill tree, different skills, and how we can combine them into a pretty decent class. I had a quick look, it's really good. So that is one of Flank's pet. It is one of those little doggies. That's a radioactive dog. That is one of Flank's active skill. He can go invisible, critical hits, and regenerate health. You can see he's a sniper. And here we're going to be seeing Flank's next spell. Oh, he's still shooting them. This is Flank's second active, which he calls down burst to do an aerial attack. And you can only have one of the actives at a time. And this is one of Flank's pets. So this is also a Flank's monkey pet. Each of the pets give Flank different passive as well.
This one is eager to please.
This is Flank's first pet, a monkey that shoots guns. Second pet is a tank.
And this one,
The third tank
he likes to chase
is a
dogs.
radioactive little doggy.
But there must be an alpha. And the hunt. The hunt is never ending.
Oh, look at them go. I love those pets. Beautiful. We'll be looking at the wiki for Flank. To start Flank off, he is a range hunter sniper. Flank really excels in terms of his attack speed, attack damage, and the ability to summon monsters, which monsters give him movement speed, attack damage, reload, damage reduction. So depending on the pets he summons, he enjoys a different buff. Flank can use 3 different spells. The first spell he can use as his action spell is Fade Away. The Fade Away is the special spell that gives Flank invisibility, 3 critical hits, and also increase movement, regeneration, critical damage, and it's basically he turns into a stealth assassin. After attacking 3 times, he will lose invisibility. There are tweaks to the spell to turn Flank into an invisible gunner, which he can keep attacking while invisible at the cost of the critical damage, at the cost of the duration. So you lose some duration, lose all the critical damage, but you can keep hitting enemies while going invisible. Flank's second spell, which is in the next talent tree, is Rack Attack. Rack Attack is basically 2 special birds that's going to be summoned by Flank, that's going to aim at enemies, and they're going to bombard the enemy. This is more of an aerial attack, and its base damage is 35. It has a much lower cooldown, as we can see, at 18 seconds, and this skill can have multiple charges. So that means Flank can use this skill more eagerly and more readily. So, the last spell Flank has is Gamma Burst. Flank can create a rift between the target, and he will teleport his pet between the rift, and once it's landing on the target, Flank's pet will become radioactive, and that will do damage and AoE wise over time and also burn enemy. This depending on the trick of the spell again, which we'll look at it. Now with the aerial burst, we can see the damage is much higher at the rank attack, and also the duration is quite high. So you can see the aerial damage. So the Flank's pet will do additional burn damage to the enemy, which is radiation, and also the cooldown is higher, so it's to compensate. At the same time, if the pet of Flank dies, this spell can also revive the pet at 30% of its health. But the double-edged sword is that it will be doubling the cooldown into a minute here. So, in addition to those skills, Flank also have his choices of pets. There will be 3 pets for us to choose from as Flank. This varies between the skill tree. In the first skill tree, we have the Jabber. The Jabber is a monkey armed with a gun. That sounds pretty cool already, right? So basically, Flank will order attack commands with a certain cooldown, and the Jabber will do certain actions. He'll be tossing grenades, using shotguns, melee attacking, or doing something for Flank. While having the Jabber, which is the little monkey, Jabber will provide movement speed for Flank. The second pet Flank has is a spider ant, which this is more of a tank formation. The pet will give Flank regeneration per second. It might not look that big, but if you're coming down to a life-death situation, any form of regeneration may be good. Flank also have spells that are passive that increase his damage dealing to the enemy if he is not a target, if he has more than 50% of HP. So this little Spender Ant has certain spells that actually can charge an enemy and also, taunt enemies as well. The last one is the little Skate, which is a mutated little radioactive dog. Flank, while having this activated, Flank will gain additional damage against the enemy, which is at 5%. This is more of an offensive unit, as the Skate can do damage to the enemy, and he can also turn into like a AoE monster by using a special spell within that skill tree. This little Skate will be radioactive and does massive AoE damage. We'll now go to the skill tree and go through all the skills in detail, and I'll give some of my thoughts, and we can work together with pretty much the leveling of the spells. Firstly, let's look at the 3 skill tree Flank has. The first one is Stalker, which allows Flank to summon the Jabber, which over here we can see the Jabber is basically a monkey that holding a pistol that gives movement speed. Flank's active is Fade Away. This spell, once activated, will give Flank movement, regeneration, and also the critical damage. Also, it's guaranteed 3 critical hits, but once you attack 3 times, you will come out of invisibility. Quite long cooldown, but very useful spell. The second skill tree we have for Flank is the Hunter. In the Hunter, Flank will summon a Spender Ant, and this particular unit will make Flank much more durable. We can see that the active spell for Flank, his action spell is Calling of the Rack. Rack are 2 special birds that will bombard enemies with a certain damage with a very low cooldown. The last skill tree Flank has is Master. Within Master, the pet we'll be using will be the Guard Sket, which is a small little radioactive dog, and this dog will be vomiting acid at an enemy upon using the attack command, which is a special move for each of the pets. Flank's active spell in this particular skill tree is called Gamma Burst. Forces his pet to blink onto the enemy, does AoE damage and continuous damage over time. This can also be used to revive the pet. The skill tree of Borderlands works in terms of leveling up. Each time you level up, you will gain a skill point. We can see that there's only 48 skill points in total. That means you can only have 48 allocations of skill trees. You can rank any of the tier 1 skills. You can see here, those are tier 1s which were readily available. But once you purchase a tier 1 spell, what you can see here is you will start to unlock the next tier of spells, but only within the skill tree. So if I start to purchase over here, we can quickly see that this is actually moving up. But I think most of the veteran gamer friends would have realized that it is much more valuable to purchase skill point within one skill tree to unlock the higher tier spells and higher tier passives, and also unlock the final spell. We can of course diverge into multi of the skill trees, but it is less recommended for lower ranking characters. Once you get higher ranking, you can pick a few of the better ones on the other skill tree. To start things off, we're going to look at the Stalkers. So, the self-repair system is Flank's first spell. By leveling this up, we can see that Flank will enjoy bonus health with maximum health and also regeneration. This is pretty consistent, and this is a pretty good start spell. The second spell we have available in Stalker is the attack command. The attack command will reduce the cooldown and damage for the special ability for the pet Flank has. This works on all the pets. So over here, the special ability is the Jabber. The Jabber will throw a grenade, pretty much, a radiation barrel at the enemy. And leveling this skill up will reduce the cooldown and increase damage of this spell. But this only affects the pets, but not Flank's active spell, which is this one. The third ability is Furious Attack. This looks pretty good, simply because this is a scaling passive, and this is a tier 1 scaling passive. For the hunter skills, the flank gains his furious attack in terms of handling, which is how you control the gun, the accuracy of the gun, and how easily to use the gun. The gun damage, which can be stacked up quite good with all form of damage. This stacks up 10 times, and this is basically a giveaway of bonus damage, because you'll be shooting enemies. Each time you shoot enemies, if you shoot multiple times, you stack up more. But if you use a sniper, likely you won't shoot that fast. So this is favoring flank using a machine gun or rapid attacking gun over a sniper. So in that sense, this spell is more tailored to the pet. This spell is more tailored to the multi-attacking or fast attacking guns, and this is tailored towards survival. Let's start with the survival part. After we picked 5 of the spells, we can see that the next tier of passives opens up. Also on the side, we see a different argument for the particular action spell. So let's equip a pet. Let's also equip the action spell. We can equip the first of the argument over here. Let's look at the arguments for flank on the Stalker tree. We can see that the first one is called Gorillas in the Mist. The fadeaway no longer ends when flank attacks. So what that means is before flank used to attack 3 times and he loses his invisibility. Now, without his critical attack and losing a bit of the duration, flank will always stay invisible. He will stay 8 seconds invisible. He will lose 50% of his critical damage. By doing so, you can basically go into a stealth ninja mode and start attacking. But if you guys notice that is that if you plan to use the fadeaway for regeneration of health, which is at 3% per second, over 15 seconds, that will give us 45%. If you go with only 8 seconds, it's a guaranteed 21% heal instead of 45%. So flank does lose out on damage and lose out on healing. Damage can be compensated by hitting enemies, but healing cannot be retrieved. So this is an optional argument because there will be other arguments to be added to the action spell. There's only 2 can be added, so we can pick always a different one. On the second tier, we have flank's passive as the Eager to Impress. With the kill skill, when flank kills enemy, the action cooldown is reduced. When the pet kills enemy, the action cooldown is reduced further and the attack command is reduced or basically refreshed. So what that means is if we're heavily reliant on using the action spell to kill things, and by reducing the cooldown, we can try to recycle the action spell. But the downside is this action spell is quite long and it doesn't provide that much killing capacity. It's more defensive. If we look at the next one, Alice shares a proportion of flank's total health regeneration. The pet shares twice amount of the health regeneration, so this allows flank to party up with other players with his pets to make sure they are not dying. If you pick the regeneration, you can consider to help the team with more regeneration. On the last one for the tier 2, flank gains increased fire rate. Flank gains even more increased fire rate after reloading. Notice the term reloading is after you reload the gun. Flank will have likely 2 of the passives. One is that he will gain additional ammo, so additional bullets in his gun. That means he doesn't want to reload. The second one is he wants to reload for additional attack speed. What we'll do is we go with survivability. We allow flank to kill units to increase his lower cooldown, and this way flank can have more chance of regeneration and repeat the cycle. So here we have one very defensive. This opens up to the next tier of the skill argument. After fadeaway, flank pet will taunt enemy during actions from a wide radius, and while taunting, the pet will have damage reduction. So that means it's a great escape skill while flank comes out of fadeaway. He can be using fadeaway for healing, that means he's low on HP, so the taunt is great. Damage reduction is also massive. So I really like this argument. We'll be adding that for us. So now we have 2 arguments. This is one of the most interesting spells we have. For the skill point, Lick the Wounds. This is only 1 point passive, and this allows flank to be revived by the pet. They will attempt to revive him. In Borderlands, when you are about to die, you go into the fight for your life state. There's a bar that's going down, and if you can fight for your life, if you kill any of the enemies, you come back to life, or if someone revives you. So there were cases when I was playing Borderlands 1 and 2. I killed the enemy, then they exploded or hit me. Now I became fight for my life. There's no enemy to kill. And that stage, this is so nice to have a pet to revive us. Because I tend to play solo without another player. If there's another player, they can save me. But with a pet, they can definitely be on your side. So definitely adding this to the skill tree. After that, we have Turn Tail and Run. This is actually a very good skill because this makes us more versatile. While moving, Flank will constantly regen health and have damage reduction. So we're basically running because this enemy is going to be hitting first. But if we're standing still, we'll be gaining gun damage and fire rate. What's going to happen is we want to be running around, we want to be fighting, but once we stop, we start shooting. So we know if we stop and shoot, we get more damage. We know if we're running, we get health regen and also damage reduction. So this is perfect skill for any of the survivors for Flank. We'll max that. We can see that we haven't unlocked the next side of Flank's ability, simply because we're one shot. Usually it takes 5 points to unlock the next stage. We can decide to pick one. I was thinking that having the 1 stack of bonus, basically it will double with the next stack, but having just one will unlock this particular ability, and this would likely to be more beneficial to have at least one to enjoy the active bonus. Now we unlocked to the next tier. Let's look at the argument. Flank's spell argument will be that health regeneration and movement bonus from his action spell will still prevail for the next 10 seconds, which is pretty big, simply because after you still have the health regen, that's 30% more health regen, and also the movement is massive. This really helps him escape, reposition, also, just having additional life against the enemy. We have the Fast and the Furious here. While above half health, this is why I was talking about having more health, Flank's gun damage and movement speed will be increased. So we remember that if Flank is moving, he will be regeneration. He also have passive regen. He also have healing from his passive. So this works wonderfully with his spell. He will get increased gun damage and increased movement because of that. So if we purchase all of those points, we'll have 25 increased damage and 10% movement. This is making us super fast and super durable. Next part we have is when enemy have no target and all targeting a different target, Flank will increase damage against them. If we consider the taunt we have with the pet, this is quite useful, and this will give us some of the much needed additional damage if the pet is still alive. If our pet is dead, then likely we'll be facing the enemy by ourselves. So I don't think I need to purchase all the points, but I'm happy to purchase 1 or 2 to unlock the next stage. Over here we have the Unblinking Eye. Successive hits on the same target increase Flank's critical damage per hit. The Unblinking Eye resets every 3 hits. So the increase per hit is 75 at this level. And this is a skill argument, and you can only have 2 of the arguments. I am considering to have this argument for the boss fight, because against the boss fight we'll have guaranteed critical hits, and this increases the critical hits by 75 per hit, which is quite good. If we're against a normal mob or not so strong mob, then it's not that great to overkill them. So this is quite a mix. I think I'll be ready to use this spell, considering if I will be fighting boss, but the regeneration is a must-have for me. And also the fadeaway taunt is not bad. So if I have trouble that my pet is dying too fast, I will try to use basically the Unblinking Eye for more damage. If my pet is surviving, I'll prefer to have him as tank. On this skill tree, we have Reach and Recover. This is a kill skill, so you have to kill enemy. Flank and pets regenerate health for a few seconds after killing the enemy. So 2 kinds of regeneration. We have health regeneration of missing HP and also rage and recover duration. So basically this will be a 3-second recoveration after killing enemy after we lost health. If we consider the spell beforehand, which goes with high HP, it really helps us to maintain HP above 50% for additional movement, and also goes in line with the survivability Flank has. So if we purchase this one, we'll be unlocking Flank's last spell. But I'm sure some of you have noticed that we haven't touched on those spells on the side. Let's go back to those for now. We have the pet upgrades. The first pet upgrade over here is the Flank's little monkey jabber. Would now, instead of using a handgun, he will use a shotgun. He will be increasing movement speed and maximum health for Flank. And some of the spell regen is based on maximum health or health percent, so this is nice to have maximum health. And also, instead of throwing a grenade, the little monkey now will do a melee attack which knocks enemy back, so it's more defensive to protect Flank. If we look into the second upgrade for the little jabber, he will now use the SMG, which is a machine gun. With the gunslinger, Flank will gain the movement speed and critical hit damage. While Flank uses an attack command, the little monkey will use a rocket launcher. This is pretty decent if you're facing against a group of enemies or if you want a burst form of damage. But if you have enough damage, you can consider using it defensively with the movement speed and maximum health for the shotgun monkey. I'll pick one of those, so depending on if I need damage or if I need defensive. With the critical hit damage, it's nice to build those, and how do you land critical hits is by landing on the critical spots of the enemy. If it's an insect, it's usually on the belly or on the particular parts of the body that's like highlighted, that's in a different color. If it's a humanoid, it's probably on the head, and if it's a special robot, it's probably on the joints. Now let's look at the final spell on the Stalker tree. In the Stalker tree, Flank and Flank's pet will gain increased damage when Flank activates the action spell. So this is when Flank goes invisible, and notice this spell will regenerate HP. But if we activate this spell when we don't have HP to be regen, this covers for that, because if Flank is full on HP, he will get double the increased damage. So the increased damage goes with 25%, and the power inside duration is 15 seconds. What that means is Flank will get 25 if he's not full health, he will get 50% if he's full health. So that turns his defensive activation invisibility into an offensive spell, which is not bad. We'll be adding that, and this takes us to 22 skill points left. What we'll be doing is we'll be going through the other two skill tree, which I think it's viable, but not particularly of my focus on the first playthrough. We'll go through all of them, and we'll decide where to put the last 22 points for Flank. On the second skill tree, we have the Hunter. In the Hunter part, Hunter have some nice passives which I plan to purchase a few after unlocking my Stalker. The first passive for Hunter is the Hunter kill skill. Whenever Flank kills an enemy, they will gain attack in the interplanetary Stalker. For each of those stacks, they will gain damage to all form of units. So basically, each time you get a kill, you'll do additional damage to the enemy. And this stacks up a few times. So damage stacks against human, robot, and beast. Also, you get more damage. So this is a quite good skill for any of the focus. We can consider purchasing this if we're killing enemies. But there's one downside, is that if you're fighting a boss, you haven't been killing enemies, then you won't trigger this activation. But in terms of fighting many of the enemies, we can consider this spell. Let's look at the ones on the side. When Flank scores a critical hit, there's a chance to gain additional ammo for the gun. And that means Flank is less to reload if he's good at hitting critical hits. This is great for snipers because you're far away, but not so good in terms of the machine gun, simply because the machine gun will gain additional attack speed by reloading over here if we pick this spell. But if we haven't, we can come back and consider using this spell. Lastly, on the tier 1 part, the Hunter kill skill, whenever Flank kills an enemy, they gain reload speed. The bonus increase if Flank scores a critical kill. So what that means is the one on the side means you get more bullets. This one means you'll be getting more reload speed. So you usually want to pick one of those. And for me, I think I'm just picking the Hunter spell, which just gives damage by hitting enemy. So let's go through Flank's argument and also go through the pet special ability for this skill tree. We have the first rank argument, which turns the burst damage into cryo damage, which is freeze elemental damage. Different element counters different units, and this will likely to counter the fire elemental, and which makes him more good in terms of freezing them. You can see that freeze them in the tracks. So makes Flank's cooldown of burst more versatile. Now the next one is Flank's rack, which are the birds, will damage the enemy and restore a proportion of Flank's HP. So the restore HP is 7% of maximum health. This is making this spell more defensive in terms of offensive. Keep in mind, those arguments cannot be used while we need to have the rack attack to use those. Next one we have flank sends forward additional rack. Flank usually summons 2 rack. Now by having 2 additional rack, that basically doubles his damage in terms of having 4 rack down. And this might be a little overkill, but at other times when you have a different argument planned in together, this can be beneficial. You can be doing additional freeze damage, or you can be looking into the increased cooldown and additional charge, which is the last argument. Racks have increased cooldown rate and also additional charge when flank have this last argument. The cooldown rate is 20% and the skill charge gets +1. So flank is able to use multiple casts of these spells and have the lower cooldown. On the second tier for the spells, we have the Hunter's Eye. Flank gains bonus when fighting different types of enemies. This bonus works pretty nicely. Critical damage against humans, armor damage versus robots, and damage reduction versus beast. So what that means is flank is more versatile versus any type of enemy. If you look on the side, whenever flank stores a critical hit, there's a chance of the action skill to be on cooldown. And while it's on cooldown, so let's say it again. With the head count, whenever flank scores a critical hit, there's a chance the action skill goes on cooldown. The chance is 20% and the cooldown is -2 seconds. If we consider leveling this up, we can have a look here. We'll have 30% to -2 seconds each time we get a critical hit. And it's quite easy to get a critical hit if you are not using a sniper to get multiple critical hits. And I think this might go along with my survivability route, with having flank go invisible, lowering CD, and doing more damage by recycling pretty much my ability with active invisibility. We also have the Ambush Predator. While there are no enemies nearby, flank with weapon handling and critical damage are increased. The critical damage is 4% and the handling is 17%. So this allows flank to kind of use the invisibility, but this have a certain restriction. So usually I want to go to something that does not have a restriction. So here we use Hunter's Eye to unlock the next tier. And this opens up to the 3rd tier. On the 3rd tier, flank have a chance to fire extra projectiles for shot. This is really beneficial if you consider using a long reload time sniper. If you're going for a sniper, and if you're going for extra projectile, that means double damage. Also, if you fire multiple times, this can be interesting as well. So this means you're doing double damage, not in terms of critical hits, but just additional projectile. I think I'll definitely be interested in those ones. Keep in mind that we'll be on 7 points, so unlike most other ones, I don't think we'll be able to unlock this spell, because we'll need 5 here, and 1 here. On the next tier, we have the big game. Flank's Hunter skill becomes much more effective and have much longer duration. The Hunter spell's effect and duration is increased. If we remember before, we were having a good time with invisibility and regeneration, and this might be good for us simply because we can consider having more healing and having more, invisibility timings. But on the side, this is actually a pretty cool one. This is the most dangerous game passive. With this passive, you want to kill the enemy which are badass or stronger. Now, why are those enemies those names? Because they are elite mobs and they're also boss monsters. Each time you kill those units, you'll get a long bonus with critical hit damage, gun damage, and handling. Additionally, you'll get additional cash reward in the Intergalactic Bureau of Bounty Hunting. So basically, flank becomes a bounty hunter. He'll get additional gold and he will just kill things. I think I like this one to have at least 1 point in it. We can see that this stats really goes pretty nicely if we keep adding to it. I think this is okay if I want to go fully tailing into my invisibility, but I want to still purchase a few points to unlock the next tier. On the next tier, we have the Galactic Shadow. Flank deals increased critical damage and enemies are less likely to attack them. Notice this does not count against anything. You just do more damage, and this is very nice if you're just doing more damage. So definitely picking this one. I'm left with 1 point, and the last point on this side is flank increased gun damage and action skill damage. Gun damage is 3%, action skill damage is 5%. This is also really nice to have, so we can purchase this one and I'll be auto points at this point. So ideally, we'll be finishing up with a stealth route and we'll try to go here. We can also try to adjust for different skills on the other side, so we're actually using the best of the passives, but here we're considering to go with the Stalker and Hunter for now. The final spell for the Hunter side is McAvoy. Flank gains a chance to score critical hit with weapons against any part of the enemy. That's 20%. So you don't have to hit the head of the humanoid, you don't have to hit the joints of the robots, you just have to hit an enemy to have a 20% to go with a critical hit. Notice that this is very nice with a lot of the other spells, but this also means that you do more damage when you hit critical hits, but you just want to hit the enemy. Usually when I'm aiming, I still try to go for the critical points, so having this or not having this would be nice but not game changing compared to the other one, which give us the 50 or 25% additional damage. So what I'm thinking is it's okay to main with the Stalker to have additional damage, and also try to just get my games up with better hitting to hit enemies. Here we have the final skill tree for Flank, which is the Master. Master is more of a utility and versatility skill tree, and we can see that this skill tree will actually have lots of the pet engagement and lots of involvement for the pets. What we can see on the first passive is that Flank Pets deals increased damage 10% per level. The next one is Flank's gun damage and actual action skills duration. So this is quite nice. We can see that this is a 3-point spell that gives gun damage and action duration. We can consider purchasing this point by using some points on this side. Depends if we really want to go deeper on this side, or maybe just have the gun damage on this side. We can see that next part is Flank's pet attacks enemy. The first melee attack is automatically critical hit. We have the pet critical damage as increased by 15%. If you have the pet increased damage and also go with the pet critical hit, you're bound to have a very hard hitting pet. And on top of that, Flank can have additional pets by unlocking his final spell. Let's go right over to the final spell, which is Dominance. With Dominance, a mini override skill from Flank will dominate an enemy. This will turn the enemy into an ally. If the enemy is a beast, remember there's humanoid, robots, and beast. If the enemy is a beast, they will also have double duration to be basically a slave or a pet for Flank for the short duration. The duration is 12 seconds for all units except beast, which is 24. Enemy will lose 2% of maximum health per second. So with 12 seconds, it is 24%. With a beast, it is 48% of maximum health. So when a unit is full on health, Flank can basically use them for at least 12 seconds. This means you have 2 pets. And this is when you add your pet abilities to do damage and to do melee critical hits. That's when it becomes helpful. What we're going to do is let's look on the side for Flank's argument, and let's look on the side for the Flank's pet upgrades. The first argument is Gamma Burst. With this one, we get a radiation aura and it's 4 damage per second. And this is quite good because the whole burst will last 20 seconds. This will give us 80 seconds AoE damage. On the next one, for the duration of the Gamma Burst, damage dealt by Flank is increased by 20%. So what that means is, just having this argument and having Flank using his particular spell, he will have 20% additional damage for 20 seconds. On the next one, we have Endurance. When Flank Pet kills an enemy while having the Gamma Burst, which is the AoE radiation, the duration of the Gamma Burst is extended and the pet's damage is increased. This effect stacks up to 5 times. Of course, we want to kill enemies with the Gamma Burst, and this makes more reason to kill enemies. Stacking 5 times means we can extend this duration into 15 seconds, and pet damage increased by 10 per kill. So if you look carefully here, the skill duration is 20 seconds. The cooldown is 30 seconds. So if you have that particular argument activated, if you kill 5 enemies, you have a longer duration than your cooldown. So you can actually rotate that. Your pet will constantly have the Gamma Burst, which is radiation and also does AoE damage and bonus damage. This makes the pet damage increase so much more with this. So this is pretty cool. I might go with the second route with a pet summoner for Flank. Lastly, we have the burst set for the argument for Flank, with his pets of course. After using Gamma Burst, the rift remains for the duration of the skill. While standing near the rift, Flank and allies rapidly regenerate health, and this regeneration is 20 per maximum health per second, 20%. And this is pretty massive, so Flank became a healer. So we remember the rift is a teleportation tunnel to allow his pet to attack an enemy. So there will be one next to Flank's pet, there will be one next to the enemy. So there will be two sources of regeneration. And this is a very burst healing, allow Flank to have the attack bonus and also maybe a burst healing. Let's look at the upgrades for the pets. The first upgrade for the little skate, which is the radioactive dog, is the Great Hound. With the Great Hound, Flank will have increased damage and increased gun damage. So two forms of damage. One is coming from gun and the other form of damage with all sorts of damage. So when Flank issues attack command, the Great Hound Skag will charge an enemy and knock them into the air. This is very similar to the knockback effect of the Shotgun Monkey, and what that means is this makes Flank more defensive and with maybe a controlling ability to stun an enemy into the air. It's pretty cool to shoot something over the air, right? So I think this will be interesting. The second part, of course, the Skag becomes a Radiant Skag, which increases Flank's damage and attack speed, fire rate. So when Flank issues an attack command, his little pet will pull the enemies into generating a singularity. Basically, it's like a mini black hole, and this will be an AoE form of disable. So here, this basically pulls them together. You will drag enemies towards it. And this is a great AoE controller, and if you throw a rocket launcher and a grenade into it, you do some pretty good damage. So especially, you also receive additional damage with the bonus of the pet. Now, we know that Flank's final ability for this skill tree will be Dominate, to turn another enemy into a pet for Flank. So he will have two pets. Let's look into Master and go further. The second tier of Master means whenever Flank pet deals damage, Flank regenerates health for a few seconds. Whenever Flank deals damage to the enemy, his pet will restore health. So basically, Flank lifesteal for the pet, while pet lifesteal for the Master. But the downside is, if your pet is dead, then the chain of healing falls off. So this is really favored having a really strong pet, but having certain arguments of killing damage or increase of spell. So this really favors having more pets. And having more pets means you want to unlock this spell. The next one, when Flank pet takes damage, the pet retains some of the damage. This goes from 5% I believe to 10 and 15. So I haven't unlocked this one, but this is basically having a more durable pet. And that means you have additional source of damage. I think I will go with pet having more damage instead of taking damage, because no matter how much you take damage, there's overwhelming amount of enemies. Of course, if you get enough healing on the pet, if you keep healing the pet, this might work. On the next part, we have Frenzy, the hunter skill where Flank pet deals damage, Flank and pet gets Frenzy. Each stack of Frenzy increases damage. This stack goes away after a few seconds. Damage is 0.8%, but because you can get 10 stacks very easily, you can get 8% free damage. And in that sense, you really want this kind of skill, because when you actually attack an enemy, which is very frequent, you're consistently having the stacks going. On the next tier, we have Psycho Head on a Stick. What a nice name. The Hunter Kill skill. So this is when you want to kill the enemy. After killing an enemy, the Flank and his pet will gain increased movement speed and damage after a few seconds. The pet gets a massive boost of 12% movement and 10% damage. The duration of this particular skill is 8 seconds. The Hive Mind. When Flank takes damage, a proportion of all damage they take is shared to their pet. This is 5% shared, and if you can level this 3 times, Flank will permanently have 15% damage reduction. And this is pretty big, because there's so many ways for Flank to heal his pet by doing damage, by regeneration. So this allows Flank to be, just more durable, which is so nice. As we go further, we have some better skills. Increase the power of pet bonus granted Flank. For this particular skill, they increase the power of pet bonus. This is for all pets, and if you look at the pet bonus, we can see this pet bonus increase 5% damage, and those pet bonus increase gun damage and fire rate. So this will amplify that by going 5 times. This can increase by 100% after leveling this. So after that, we'll have a 1 skill point spell. This is the Mutated Defenses. When the Flank's pet is at low HP, it gains damage reduction and regenerates health. This skill has a long cooldown, so keep that in mind. So damage reduction is 30%, health regen is 40 30%, 40% of the maximum pet health. This has a 15-second cooldown, but this means the pet is so much more durable. And remember, if Flank have 2 pets, maybe this will work with the dominated pet and also with the current pet, or maybe just work with one. We still haven't tested, but this is interesting to go with a full pet build. On the next part, we have pack tactics. All damage dealt by Flank and the pet is increased. Additionally, the maximum health of both Flank and pet is increased. So this is the perfect one for the pet lovers. You do more damage together and you kill things faster with more damage. Next one, we have Shared Spirit. While Flank is at low HP, a proportion of all damage they take is shared to their pet instead, and the shared damage is 50%. If we remember here, we have Hive Mind and also Shared Spirit. So what we can do is, we can make Flank more durable by sharing damage to the pet while doing damage ourselves by converting life for the pet, and also giving the pet more durability with mutated defense. So this whole branch of master is circled around having pets and just enhancing pets and increase the durability and survivability of Flank. Flank became the summoner while his pets are the major source of damage. We have covered the dominance, which allow Flank to basically enslave the enemy. If it's a beast, he will take additional duration for the enemy to be controlled. Thank you so much for watching this particular spotlight for Flank. We will be looking into building him in a full 100% story replay as the first replay, so definitely subscribe onto the YouTube channel for the best insights of the best playthroughs for Borderlands 3. We'll try to be the most survivable, we'll try to have the minimum death rate. We'll try to make this as hardcore as we can, try to not die anytime in the gameplay. So we'll try to be conservative, want to be a stealth assassin. So please subscribe onto the YouTube channel for more Borderlands guides, tips, and also stories to come. We'll be looking into all the stories with Borderlands 1, 2, Telltale, and also the pre-sequel. Please also follow and subscribe onto Twitch to support me on Twitch, and also watching us live as we play Borderlands 3. Thank you guys.